RPA is the first step. What is happening here is we calculate and try to understand the automation complexity of a process. Say for example, in your organization, you got an opportunity to automate 10 or 20 processes. You can't be automating all of the processes at the one go. You need to understand whether the processes which deems fit for the automation are they actually, what kind of applications we are using into, what will be the return on investment when we automate those processes, right? Do we need to automate them, or they will only being short lived, where in the next 6 months the process do not exist? So a lot of things we talk about in the prepare RPA, and what we do is we capture the list of all the candidate, list of all the processes across all the department into a central portal. Some of organization is using Jira, some of the organizations are using SharePoint, some of the organizations are using Automation Hub provided by the UiPath. The goal here is to list out all the processes which are given input by the employees to be automated, right? And then certain group of people come together like business analyst, process SME, and they discuss about details of the processes. They try to understand how much time a process is taking. Is this process is in a good shape to be automated? Do we need to change something into the process before automations? All those discussions happen into prepare RPA stage. And once the prepare RPA stage gets completed and you identify that these are the number of processes which could be automated, because the assessment is still need to be done. So you are coming up with list of all the processes which could be automated and moving into the phase number 2. The phase number 2 is about the solution design, right? In the solution design phase, you document and validate whatever the documents are already available. If some process SME is progressing and processing the process on a day-to-day basis, there must be some document. That document is called as is flow, or simply call it as is, or somebody also call it as is process flow, which talks about how the process is currently being conducted into the production environment. What are the relevant data set? How the data is coming into process, and what is the data going out from the process? What are the key exception areas? What if something goes wrong, right? All those detail about the processes, matrices, handlings, everything is documented there. If they are already there, it's good and okay. If they are not already there, it's a time for us to document it. We create PDD, process design document, in this page, and that document will become single source of truth, single source of reference for all other phases. RPA developer generally starts from here, where they have been asked to create SDD. SDD is another document which is built on top of PDD. So PDD is a high level document, right? SDD is a low level document. In PDD, you create how process actually works. What are the steps in the process? What input the process will be taking in, right? In SDD, you discuss how process will be actually done by a tool. So that's a different. Don't worry about much detail of these documents. We have an exercise, and I will also show you how that document look like. We'll also create a sample PDD document using UiPath task capture. So let's quickly move to the third phase, which is the build RPA. So far what we have done is we have prepared the list of processes that need to be automated, right? We have prepared the list of items that can be prioritized over others, right? In a form of lists of the processes. In the solution design phase, what we have done is we have created a document to validate whatever is being done into production, right? And what are the exceptions, what is the input, what is the output, how much time the process is taking, whether the process is, you know, eligible for automation, and all those things, all those decisions has been taken place. Now it's a time to build a RPA, and this is the phase where most of the RPA developers are working. So RPA developers have been given PDD, they asked for SDD, and on the basis of SDD, they start building the workflow. In the build RPA workflow, you are creating some templates, you are creating some reusable component, so that, say for example, in your organization there are 10 processes, all of them are using SAP. So you will try to design a process in such a way that you can reuse some of the component from this process to another process, right? Similarly, you also think about how much time this process is going to take. If the process volume is too high, you need to think for a multi-robot architecture where multiple robots are working on a same one process, right? You also think about what will be, obvious and the best optimal design for the process to happen. Do we need to completely automate the process? That means if a process is doing from step A to step Z, are we doing automation for the entire steps, or are we doing automation for A to B, B to C, and from C to D is still being handled by the man, and then from D to Z it will be handled by the robots? So all those discussions, all those design considerations been taken care, and you build a workflow, right? The workflow build here is not been tested. So in the next phase, we test the RPA. We test the process that we have designed using the UiPath tool. The developer here is responsible for creating a unit test cases. They create unit test cases in a form of a template that is being given by the organization. They also create unit test cases in a tool itself using test manager and other utilities, and they test it. They initially do a quick run of test by integrating all the workflow together into a main flow, and then process SME helps them to give a data, especially which is not the happy path, which is the bad data. So they try to test the process on the basis of the bad data to understand how the exception is being carried out. Once all these exceptions are being carried out and it passes the UAT test, it moves into a stabilized RPA phase where we do a production release. But before the production release, we need to prepare some other documents. You need to get this process which you developed signed by the business, because ultimately the business is going to pay for the entire cost of development. They need to validate that the process that you have automated is doing exactly same way it used to do before the automation. They also take care of some of the audit and the regulatory requirement, whether the process is not exposing any personal data to third party solutions and all those things. Once everything gets certified, the signing off, business gets approved that this process can be moved into production, and this can be run on a daily basis or a weekly basis or a monthly basis. It's moved into a stabilized RPA phase, and there you go into hyper support. When I say hyper support or hyper care, there it's a responsibility of a developer who has developed the bot to ensure that the bot is running at least for 15 days in a way it should run, and then there is a handover between the development and support team. So for initial 10-15 days it is being handled by the developer who designed the bot, and then it is being handed over to a central team who is responsible for managing and monitoring all the bots which is deployed into the enterprise. So there we talk about the stabilizations. They prepare some operation handover guide. They also prepare some user manual how the bot need to be rerun, and how if something goes wrong it can be restarted, and all those things. You also prepare change request if there is something which has been identified into production and that need to be fixed. So you create a change request, it's come back again to the solution design and prepare RPA phase where you prioritize list of JIRAs and list of to-dos, and then the cycle goes on, right? So that's the overall, feedback and the flow of the process automation life cycle. We do a lot of documentation. We also take documentation from one stage as an input to another stage, and lot of other roles also participate into it. It's not only the responsibility of the RPA developer. RPA BAs are also involved. You have solution architect who is also working with you in solution design phase. You have also somebody from the infrastructure team to understand if you need a third party integration and all those things, so that the firewall, ports, networks can be arranged. In the next slide, we'll see what are the different role and responsibilities of the person in all of these areas. But before moving into the next slide, do you have any doubt on this? Do you have any questions around this entire process automation life cycle?
No question. Can I just check with you? Would you be giving us the slides later on if we want to refer it back?
Okay, so you need to check that with Uma. Okay.
Okay. No, I did yesterday, and she was saying that they don't work on weekend, and they will upload later on. Probably will take like few days. So that's it.
Yeah, this you can always access. So when you go to the LMS, you have option to access this training material anytime. This is valid for entire from the day your account has been created into LMS till 1 year. So in 1 year, you can
Yeah.
always come and refer back these slides. And moreover,
Yeah.
this decks that the diagram that you are looking here is been taken from the
Mm-hmm.
UiPath itself. So this is a pretty
Okay.
standard RPA life cycle. So I'll be able to give you some sort of material where you can refer this. So at the end of we have an agenda today where I'll be providing you some sample documents. I mean some sample PDD, some sample SDD, some sample test cases document and all those things. And there you should be able to refer these. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Thanks.
Okay, all right. So this is a quick overview of the process automation life cycle, and let's quickly move to the next slide, and there we will discuss about different roles and responsibilities of different persons in all these cycles. So if you look at the top, it's the same boxes in the last slide, and but we have included who is doing what in what phases, right? So if you look at the box which are in delivery, so actually there are two color coding used here, and you can see the description of the color coding at the bottom of the PPT. So it's all these boxes talk about two things. The one is what is the activity and what is the delivery that you are going to produce out of these phases, and who is the owner, who is the responsible for doing what. So that's we really need to understand this deck to understand and how actually it works into organizations. This is a blueprint. This is not exactly how every industry work, right? In all other industries, say for in your company, steps might be same, but the name could be different, right? A person is performing the same set of action, but the role is different. In some of the organization, BA is responsible for everything, while in some of the organization, process SME is responsible for inventory of the processes, right? But overall, in all of these stages of the life cycle, same thing happens across all the industries. The role may be differ, or a person may be differ, but the delivery points and deliverables would be same. And if you look at all those checkpoints, right, there are 5 checkpoints in the entire life cycle. There we stop for a few days and try to understand what we need to achieve in the last phase has been achieved or not, or is it good to move to next phase. So all those are checkpoints. So let's quickly recap and start with the prepare RPA. So as I discussed in the prepare RPA, what are the outputs that we are looking for, right? So we are looking for inventory of the processes that need to be automated, the first thing. We are also looking for the opportunity assessment for the RPA. That means whatever the list of processes we have, are they good for the automation? Are we really going to get some ROI while automating those things? Or is the process is really required to be automated? Or is that process is getting retired in next 6 months? Or is it not necessarily to be automated because it's take only few hours of a year? And all those. So inventory of the processes, opportunity assessment of the RPA is done by process SME and the business analyst. So in some organization it is done by business analyst, RPA business analyst, and in some of the organization it is being managed by the process SME. The other two quadrant, I mean the boxes that you look at in the first row is decision regarding pipeline prioritization and decision regarding the planning and communicate changes is being handled by the business teams, right? So let's take example of a bigger organization, right? And there you are automating many things into many departments. Some of the processes are critical. Some of the processes are driven by the changes happening from the governing body. Some of the processes you need to change because there is a auditory requirement. Some of the processes are being changed because there is a regulatory requirement. So the decision on which process need to be automated first is being taken care with the help of the business, right? So let's take a quick example. In a bank, there could be processes from finance and accounting. There could be processes from customer onboarding. There could be processes from account payable. There could be processes from account recovery, right? Or out of all of these four processes, which process need to be automated first? What is the current bandwidth of the RPA development team? Are they capable or are there enough resources that all these four processes can be done in a one go? Or are there is a only limited resources and we can't proceed with all these four processes in a first cycle? So they need to pipeline and prioritize which process need to be automated first. Usually it is done by the Jira tool and the sprint planning, but some of the organization has recently started using UiPath Automation Hub as well. In the Hub, you capture all the ideas which is coming from the different sources, which is the coming from the employee, which is coming from the business, which is coming from the IT side, right? But once the decision regarding the prioritization happen, it's moved to the next phase. The last or the fourth block in the prepare RPA at the bottom is planning and communicate changes. So you also need to interact with lot many other people, not only with the BA and the business, right? You need to plan your delivery so that there should be a project manager who will be responsible for communicating the changes, what need to be happen in next few days or next few years, right? You need to communicate with the infrastructure team. You need to communicate with uh, network and security team. You need to communicate with the different levels of management. So all those communication is being taken care by the PM and the implementation manager. They are also responsible for planning the resources. They are also responsible if there is one resource who is working in a different department need to be bring and need to be bring out. So all those considerations happens here, right? So once all these four things done by the different group of people, as a checkpoint, we have two things. One is prioritize pipeline. That means what process will be developed with the defined business benefit. That means if we automate this process, what will be the benefit that the business will be getting? The reason being, the one who pays is a business. So you need to also consider the point, what will be the benefits we'll be getting when we automate this process. So at the end of the first phase, which is the prepare RPA, you have the name of a process that need to be automated with some KPI and matrices that can be measured so that you understand what is the ROI on the process, right? Let's move to the next phase, which is solution design. And here Again, you will see lot of people are involved in this solution design phase. Business analyst is engaged, then you have solution architects, then you have IT team, then you have RPA developer. So PDD is, there is a lot of confusion among the people who is responsible for creating a PDD and who is responsible for creating SDD. Lot of people say that when I take interview, they say that I have created the PDD. So if you are an RPA developer, you don't need to create a PDD. PDD is simply given by the business analyst to you to understand what the process is and how you can develop it. So it is not the responsibility of a developer, but in some small organization where there is only one person who is acting as a RPA developer, who is also acting as a business analyst, perform the PDD as well as the SDD. But ideally, the PDD creation and the sign off is being taken care by the business analyst. So the first step in the solution design is to prepare a PDD, which is the single source of truth document for all other downline phases. Everything need to be captured into the PDD, all the requirement, all the expectations, all the exception. And once it is being created, it need to be signed off by the business. Once it is created the sign off, then only we can move into the build RPA phase. But at the same time, when the PDD creation is going on in parallel, to understand how this process can be automated, what kind of design pattern we need to follow, do we need additional third-party licenses, do we need to integrate with Microsoft Azure for some other functions, do we need to integrate with some third-party OCRs, and all those design considerations, not only about the process but also about the architecture of a robot. Do we need to run this process 24 into 7? If so, how we can minimize the license uses, right? Then you also discuss with the infrastructure team, disaster recovery team about the security and infra reviews. You also plan about if something goes wrong, how the disaster recovery can be done for the certain level of the components. Then you reach out to the IT team again for the preparation of dev and test environment. It is a one-time activity, but here you need to prepare, different tenants. Here you need to prepare different environment. Say for example, dev, test, UAT and production. If you want to segregate all of them, or you can do it in lighter way like non-production and production environment. So there should be one non-production environment and one production environment. Some organizations have different ways of doing it, so they prepare dev, test or QA, and then UAT and production. Some of the organizations also have EBF where they do the emergency bug fixes. So it depends on the organization how many licenses they have and how many number of processes they want to automate in the future. In those basis, they prepare different environments. And once PDD is created and sign off, RPA developer starts creation of a SDD, which is solution design document, or you can say design specification document. Somebody call it DSD, somebody call it SDD, but the name is different, but the content of this document is remain same. Here we'll talk about how data and how the process will be working actually in the tool, and PDD will talk about how the process will work. So that's a difference between PDD and SDD. Once you have PDD created, sign off. Once you have SDD created and it has been agreed between the BA and the developer, then we start building RPA phase. And at the checkpoint, you have clear requirement of the automation. You understand what need to be done. You have documented what and how it need to be done. You have some test case scenario that need to be tested once you build the RPA, and then build phase starts, right? Again, in the third row, you will see lot of people are involved, mostly RPA developer and then process owner. And sometimes you also go back to the business analyst to understand if there is some change, what will be the impact of that change. Because in real life scenario, it never happens that you freeze the requirement and you do the development, there is a consistent feedback that is coming from business analyst or the process owner or some other governing forces and external parties, that you need to accommodate some changes during the development of a cycle. And that's how we plan sprints, so that if some change coming in, we should be able to decide that we can be able to accommodate that or not. So all those things happen in the build RPA phase. So you have RPA developer who is doing the automation using UiPath Studio tool. We have a RPA developer who is doing unit and technical and integration testing. Then we have a group of people from the process team and the IT team, and then RPA developer, they prepare the test cases, what need to be tested and validated. Then there is a difference between the preparation of the environment. So sometime the preparation of environment happens prior to the build. Sometime preparation of dev environment only happens in a solution design phase, but UAT environment doesn't get prepared there, and it gets prepared when the process gets developed. So this is the one-time activity. Once your UAT environment is ready, for the next time you don't need to do it. So someone move into solution design phase, someone move into build RPA phase. But this is a one-time activity, right? And then if there are any changes coming into process, that means you created the PDD, you get it signed off by the business, you created the SDD, you get it signed off by the BA, but when you're developing, you identify something that what is actually written in a document and what is actually happening through the application is not matching. You need to accommodate those changes, and you need to get it reviewed by the BA to understand that the way in which the automation is getting developed, it is not invalidating the steps that we do. So all the discussions happen here. We evaluate the changes and you again update the DHD and SDD. That is being done by the RPA developer. So the responsibility of RPA developer is to update the SDD if there is any changes which is being previously not noticed in a solution design phase. All right, so till here RPA developer has developed the automated process. He has tested the automated process using the unit testing. He has now access to all the test data which is being prepared by the process owner. UAT environment is ready and given by the IT and infrastructure team. Documents already get updated. So you have outcome as an automated process. And now it's a time to test it. Now it's a time to test it with the real-time data. It's now the time to test with the process owner and the RPA support team. So this will be the first entry point where the support team will work with the process owner, because if you work in any enterprise grade environment, you don't have access to UAT platform directly. RPA developer has access only in a dev environment. If you need to access the UAT environment, you need to go through RPA support professionals. If you need some logs or if you need some deployment has to happen in UAT, it has to be handled by the RPA support professional. It is for the reason of reducing the risk, right? So you pass all your artifacts that you developed in the build RPA phase, like your process, your release package, your documentation, to the RPA support professional. They create the change ticket, they get it approved, yeah, and they perform the UAT tests with the help of process owner. So process owner will be running the processes with the help of RPA support professional. If they identify some bug, they'll be reporting it back to the RPA developers. RPA developer will be fixing those bugs, releasing the new package, and it goes on unless they reach to a point where a process is good enough to be released into production. During the test,
Sir, I have a question.
yeah.
So this UAT is actually done externally
Mm-hmm.
before it's actually developed, correct?
Sorry.
Yeah, this test, this UAT test, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is actually done externally first. Then after that, it's actually it goes
to the production. It's developed for the production. Yes. Correct? Yeah. So actually what happen is once you develop your automation, right? And you are a RPA developer, okay? So you prepare all your artifact. You bundle everything that is required for the process to run, right? Config files, credentials, log file location, directory structure, and everything. So you bundle everything, you create a change request. I mean, you ask support team to create a change request, and when they create a change request with a change detail, they install the RP process on UAT environment because you don't have access to the UAT environment. But things getting changed in some of the organization, developer also have access to UAT. But in traditional, in the past, there is no access to the UAT environment to the developers, right? So that means UAT is not built in the actually UAT is actually built in the UiPath, but then it's not done by the developer. It's done by the support team. That's correct, right? Yeah. When I say UAT, I mean when I say UAT, there is a difference between the test that you do at the studio level and the test that you do in a UAT. So I'll tell you what is the difference. When you develop the code using UiPath Studio, you run it locally. You run it in a debug mode, right? You don't schedule it. You run it by going through workflow by workflow, right? By navigating to the different workflows. And there you are working in a attended mode. That means you are watching the screen, what has been done at the application, right? But in UAT mode, it's mostly performed in unattended mode where you are not looking at the screen of application. You simply running it from the orchestrator. Once jobs gets completed, you see the result is good or not. So that's a difference between the test that you do, unit and technical testing in a build phase, and the test that you do, which is perform UAT in a UAT test RPA phase. Can you see this block here and this block here? So in this block, you test it locally on your machine using the workflows. You test it one by one or you test doing integration, but you do it locally on your machine. May not be the data is a real, but here data has to be real. Data has to be copied from production or production like data. Yeah. So basically what they do is from production they copy the backup of the old, so and then they import into UAT, and on the back old data they run the test cases to see how actually it's get processed. Okay. Yeah. So that's how when you test the RPA and you have coordinated and recorded the test result, because recording is pretty important, because if you move the process into production and then process owner comes and says, oh look, this process is not running good, I am not happy. So in those cases you can showcase them that look, while doing the testing we have covered all your test scenario, you have given us these many number of tests that need to be run with the process, we have captured the result in a template, we have shown the result to you to validate that how the result looks like, whether the result is good or bad, and you are the one who signed off for the production, then you can't blame, right? So that's the reason you need to coordinate in the testing with the BA, record the test results, and then sign off is given by the BA. So there is a difference between sign off which is given here, here, and here. So this sign off is usually given by the BA because for RPA developer, BA is the one who has given all your requirement, right? So the BA will be responsible here for producing the sign off, and BA will coordinate at the same time with the process owner to validate the recorded results are good. Okay. So we have tested the process. Now process is ready for release in production. Process is all ready to take next step, right? So in the stepwise RPA, which is actual production, There you prepare everything that you need for a process. That means you have all artifacts ready, you have all documentation ready, your automation is being certified by the security, governance and all other councils in your organization. And now you deploy your code into production to run without the manual supervision. But for first few days of the deployment, when you move it into a production, so you move it into a production and then RPA support team is monitoring the process into production, because RPA developer don't have access here. RPA developer don't have access in this stabilized RPA phase. So RPA support team will be monitoring the process. If something goes wrong, they'll first find out in a document that they can retry it or they can resume it using the document they have. If they are able to do it, it's well and good. If they are not able to do it, they'll raise a bug or they raise an incident ticket, and that incident ticket will be coming to RPA developer for analysis to understand what went wrong, whether the data is correct or incorrect, or something wrong with the environment, or the application is not available. So all those things happen here. So in the hypercare, you are responsible for monitoring the production environment, monitoring that the production environment works well, right? You follow the ITIL methodology of creation of incident, problem tickets and all those things. And business analyst here will also look for whatever the measures has been taken, that the result is looking like an actual result. That means before start of the process, they have thought that how result will look like, and now the process has already run into some days into production. So they need to compare the result and understand that whatever the ROI we have thought of designing the process is being achieved. Say for example, if the process manually takes around 2 hours to complete, and they thought that when they will be automating this will be getting completed in 15 minutes, or the processes are getting completed in 15 minutes or not. If they are completed in 15 minutes, well and good. If they are not completed in 15 minutes, they need to look for the lesson learned. They need to identify what is the reason why we are not able to achieve the ROI that we have outset at the start of the RPA development life cycle, right? All those things happens into stabilized RPA. In the stabilized RPA, you are getting lot of problem ticket, lot of bug fix request, lot of change request, and then you get feedback from the business, right? Where they are tracking the benefits they have tried to achieve with this the process automations. So at the last row, last column, you see there are three things, and those three persons like BA, PM is a one who has worked here in the planning and communication, works here to understand the performance of the process. When I say performance of the process, that means I talked about average handling time of a process. Similarly, there are some other aspect of the process performance assessment like risk reduction, customer satisfactions and all other stuff. So those are being measured, benefits are being tracked, whether the cost of development, how the cost of development will return into ROI and all those things. So from here you are getting a constant feedback that is coming to solution design phase, and you keep improving the things, right? Any question on this big slide and big blocks of entire RPA lifecycle?
No, actually, similar process